Have you ever picked up a childhood favorite, expecting warm nostalgia, only to think, wait, was this always so intense? Yeah, rereading Beatrix Potter as an adult is a wake-up call. We thought these were cute animal adventures. Turns out, they are more like survival thrillers. A rebellious rabbit dodging a vengeful farmer, kittens stumbling into hidden dangers, a trusting duck nearly becoming someone's dinner. Beatrix was not playing around. Who was the genius behind these deceptively dark tales? Born in 1866, Beatrix Potter grew up in London but found her passion for nature during summers in Scotland, sketching wildlife with her brother. Well, that explains the animals, but what about the cutthroat life lessons? And her writing journey? It didn't start with fame. It began with handwritten bedtime stories for her governess's children. One letter in 1893 featured a mischievous rabbit named Peter. Sound familiar? She loved animals, loved storytelling, and even had a pet rabbit named Peter. But were her books just bedtime stories, or was she secretly preparing kids for the harsh realities of life? Let's dive into 3 of her most famous tales and uncover what she really was trying to tell us. First, the tale of Peter Rabbit. The first of Beatrix Potter's tales, published in 1902, seems like a simple story about a mischievous bunny. Peter Rabbit isn't like his siblings, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. While they listen to their mother's warnings, Peter has a taste for adventure, or maybe just trouble. Before leaving for the baker's, their mother gives a chilling reminder. Stay out of Mr. McGregor's garden. And why? Because their father went once and never came out. That should have been enough. That should have made Peter turn the other way. But the moment his mother disappears, he makes his choice. He slips under the gate. At first, it's paradise. Fresh, delicious vegetables, all his for the taking. A sudden, sharp gasp. Mr. McGregor sees him. And just like that, the game changes. The chase is instant and merciless. Peter bolts, panic rising. He weaves through the garden, his tiny heart pounding, lungs burning. But Mr. McGregor is faster, angrier, and determined to catch him. Shoes? Lost. His blue jacket? Gone. Every turn is a dead end. Every second, the footsteps get closer. This is no playful scolding. Mr. McGregor isn't chasing Peter for fun. He wants him gone. And not in the go home you naughty bunny kind of way. Peter barely makes it. Barely. He squeezes under the gate, leaving his jacket behind like a crime scene marker. He stumbles home, breathless, shaken, lucky to be alive. And his reward for surviving this life or death ordeal? Chamomile tea. Meanwhile, his obedient siblings enjoy a proper supper. A cute children's story? Not quite. Look at it through adult eyes, and the tale takes on a whole new meaning. The tale of Peter Rabbit, its ability to appeal to readers of all ages. As a child, I was captivated by Peter's adventures and his daring escapades in the garden. Now, as an adult, I find myself appreciating the deeper themes and messages woven into the story. The book certainly stands the test of time and continues to resonate with audiences of all ages. And those themes? Let's be honest, it's all about rebellion. Peter isn't just a mischievous bunny, he's every young person pushing against authority, wanting to live on their own terms. But authority always pushes back. Peter had McGregor, we have the system. Mr. McGregor's relentless pursuit? That's the weight of strict parents, suffocating rules, or the government taking a hefty slice of your paycheck. And Peter's desperate escape? That's every office worker avoiding their boss at 5:01 p.m. on a Friday. And what does Peter get for his rebellion? Not freedom, not a grand victory, just enough to keep going, like a paycheck that barely covers rent. Now, if Peter Rabbit teaches us about youthful rebellion, then our next tale explores something even more unsettling. What happens when you trust the wrong people? Do you remember the tale of Jemima Puddle Duck? Well, if you don't, this story was published in 1908, and on the surface, it's about a duck with a simple dream, hatching her own eggs. But this is not a feel-good follow-your-dream story, no, this is a slow-motion disaster, a cautionary tale about misplaced trust, and possibly one of the most frustrating stories you'll ever read. But let's get into the actual plot. Jemima lives on a farm where the farmer's wife keeps taking away her eggs because, well, Jemima is a terrible mother. She's careless, impatient, and, quite frankly, not the brightest duck in the pond. But instead of taking the hint and improving her skills, Jemima makes a bold decision. She leaves. A fresh start, a new beginning, freedom. And almost immediately, she walks right into the biggest mistake of her life. Jemima meets a charming, well-spoken fox who offers her a perfect nesting place in his shed. Now let's pause here. If you've ever heard a single fairy tale, you already know foxes are bad news. But Jemima? She sees none of the red flags. Not the suspicious enthusiasm, not the creepy politeness, not the fact that he offers to carry your eggs inside. Readers, meanwhile, are practically yelling at the book, "Jemima, no!" Because that's the thing about trusting the wrong people. You don't realize it's a mistake until you're halfway into the oven. Now, let's be real. We've all had a Jemima moment. That one job that sounded too good to be true, the friend who only calls when they need something, the time you bought a designer bag online and received a crumpled knockoff that smelled like glue, and the fox? Oh, he's everywhere. He's the recruiter who promises competitive pay. Translation, unpaid internship. He's the network marketer who insists you just have to believe in yourself and buy $500 worth of useless supplements. He's the landlord who says the leak isn't that bad. But every Jemima needs a Kep, the one who sees the disaster coming. Kep, the farm dog, is the friend who warns you not to sign that contract. And thanks to him, Jemima is saved at the last second. The fox's grand dinner plans ruined. And here's the part that will make you want to scream. Jemima learns nothing. She goes back to the farm, still struggling as a mother, still naive, still making the same bad choices, because sometimes people don't change. They keep trusting the wrong people. They keep reinstalling the one app they swore they'd quit. They keep handing their eggs to the nearest fox, convinced this time will be different. Perhaps Beatrix Potter was making a point. Some people are wired to ignore red flags. And while that's frustrating, it's also painfully relatable. Jemima's story is about misplaced trust, but if you thought that was bad, wait until you hear about the kitten who almost became pudding. Truth is, sometimes the biggest threats don't come from charming foxes. Sometimes the danger is hiding much closer to home. The tale of Samuel Whiskers, when life butters you up. Tom Kitten is, well, not the brightest kitten in the litter. He lives with his mother, Mrs. Tabitha Twitchit, and his sisters, Moppet and Mittens, in a house that has a very big problem. It's completely overrun with rats. Now, Mrs. Tabitha, being a tired mother who just wants 5 minutes of peace, Tom, he does what any rebellious child would do. He escapes and climbs up the chimney. And that's where his problems begin. Because the moment Tom disappears up that dark passageway, he is no longer in control. He stumbles straight into the waiting paws of two predators, Samuel Whiskers and his wife, Anna Maria. These aren't your average cheese-stealing rodents, no. These are calculated, polite, patient predators. They don't chase Tom, they don't pounce, instead they simply butter him up. Literally, they roll him in dough carefully, methodically, preparing to make a delicious kitten pudding. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate how unsettling this is. Tom doesn't even realize he's doomed until he's fully prepped for baking, and that's what makes it terrifying. Thankfully, their OSHA-violating baking technique alerts his frantic mother, Mrs. Tabitha. She and her nosy friend, Mrs. Ribby, call for reinforcements. Enter John Joyner, the terrier with a saw, who busts through the floor just in time. Tom is saved. The rats, they escape to a nearby farm because apparently being evicted is just a minor inconvenience when you're a professional menace. But at least for now, the Twitchit household is rat-free. On the surface, the tale of Samuel Whiskers seems like another don't wander off or bad things will happen kind of story. But look deeper, and it suddenly feels uncomfortably real. Because this isn't just a story about a kitten getting into trouble, it's about how danger doesn't always announce itself. Tom thought he was in control, just like people who assume bad deals, manipulative co-workers, or rising rent prices won't catch up to them. By the time they realize, it might be too late. Now, if you were paying attention earlier, you'd expect me to talk about the one person who steps in and saves the day, the Kep of the situation. And yes, John Joyner, the terrier, does exactly that. But let's talk about something different. what happens when help arrives just a little too late. Because here's the thing, Tom was rescued, but not before he had been fully prepped for cooking. Not before he had been terrified, covered in dough, and just inches away from becoming food. And that's a different kind of lesson. Sometimes even when help arrives, the damage is already done. Ever had a friend warn you about a terrible job after you've already signed the contract? Or you realized your great business partnership was a scam only after you emptied your savings? Yep, that's the Tom Kitten experience. The lesson? Life doesn't always attack you head on. Sometimes it nudges you like dough, slowly, until you wake up one day and realize you're already halfway into the oven. And when that happens, you better hope your version of John Joyner gets there fast. At the end of the day, maybe Beatrix Potter didn't just write cute little animal stories. Maybe she saw the world for what it really was. A place where mischievous rabbits get chased, overly trusting ducks make terrible life choices, and some of us are just one bad day away from being rolled into a pastry. Her tales are funny, charming, and just a little too real. And honestly, that's probably why they still hold up today. Because let's face it, we're all just trying to survive, avoid metaphorical McGregors, and hopefully not end up in a metaphorical pie. But now I want to hear from you. Which of these stories do you think best sums up your life? Are you constantly dodging trouble like Peter? Have you trusted the wrong fox a little too often? Or have you, at any point, felt like the universe was buttering you up for disaster? Let me know in the comments, because if we're going to overthink children's books, we might as well all do it together. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.